The Western propaganda machine just will not stop. Russia invaded Ukraine. America cares about the Ukrainian people. Ukraine's a democracy. Just because lies are repeated over and over does not make them any more true. If you don't mind, I would like to go over the timeline events that have led us to this current situation. These are going to be factual events, and I'll save my commentary for the end. In 2014, right-wing nationalist groups supported by the CIA staged protests and eventually a coup that ousted Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. A new pro-West president was installed, Petro Poroshenko, and the republics of Ukraine, the easternmost republics, Donetsk and Lugansk, were not included in choosing Poroshenko as president. After Poroshenko stated his intention of distancing relations with Russia and accepting America's invitation to join NATO, both Donetsk and Lugansk informed Kiev of their intention to hold referendums to become autonomous republics as allowed in the Ukrainian constitution. Poroshenko, of course, denied these requests, even though the right is guaranteed by Ukrainian law. Undeterred, Donetsk and Lugansk held the referendums, and in both republics, over 93% of the people voted for independence. The very next day, the Ukrainian army attacked and began shelling the unprepared population. Pro-Western Vladimir Zelensky succeeded Poroshenko, and the shelling continued. For 8 straight years, every single day, the Ukrainian army fires mortars into Donetsk and Lugansk. Thousands, mostly civilians, have been killed. Just over 3.5 months ago, in an attempt to protect its own borders from further NATO expansion and to liberate the people in Donbass, Russia started a special operation and began pushing the Ukrainian army out of Donetsk and Lugansk. Lugansk is completely free, and Donetsk is on the verge of being liberated. So these are the facts. Now, when I hear Western media condemning Russia for this intervention in Ukraine, I think the most important question is this: Who was going to come to the rescue of the people of Lugansk and Donetsk? In fact, when was the world going to even acknowledge they existed, that they were being attacked and shelled for 8 continuous years? Can you imagine going to sleep every night and wondering if tonight was the night that a mortar was going to hit your house and you and your family were going to be killed? I have been to both Lugansk and Donetsk many times since 2016, and every time I go, I see Ukrainian martyrs falling into public areas, parks, schools, the airport, hospitals, residences. I used to call this a war, but this is not a war. The Ukrainian army, with the most sophisticated weaponry in the world, courtesy of America, is not combating in a war. They are committing genocide. They're deliberately targeting civilians. And ironically enough, all the things America accuses Russia of doing, Ukraine is guilty of. The U.S. says Russia is a dictatorship, yet Zelensky outlawed 2 opposition parties and jailed their leaders. United Russia is a party with the most seats in the Duma, but the LDPR party as well as the Communist Party also have seats in the Duma. America says Russia does not have free speech, but it is Zelensky who ordered 3 media outlets critical of him to be permanently shut down. It is Ukraine, not Russia, with avowed fascist regiments serving in the army. But these truths are ignored by Western media because this narrative runs contrary to the story presented to the people in order to keep supporting, arming the Ukraine, which is causing and continuing destruction and deaths. The United States claims to be a beacon of democracy. Lugansk and Donetsk exercised their democratic right through free referendums, and the result? Being subjected to genocide by Ukraine with America's approval and America's support. Actions speak louder than words. The U.S. overthrew Saddam Hussein, Omar Gaddafi, Viktor Yanukovych, and have been involved in more than a dozen coups in South and Central America. This is the exact opposite of democracy. The irony cannot be lost on us that it is Russia, who the West has made out to be a totalitarian villain, is the country and the only country coming to the aid of Donbass and giving them the opportunity through the democratic process to decide their own destiny.